Hey fans of Stalking the Wild Autoharp, I'm Hal Weeks, and finally I'm going to get around to talking to you all about tuning. And I have to confess that I made this video, the bulk of this video, about 6 weeks ago when I was back in Denver. And I covered a lot of ground, and I've just finished watching all of the rough material before I edit it, and it's going to take me all afternoon to edit it together, and it might end up being kind of long, so bear with me on that. But I wanted to tell you that towards the end of the video, I'm going to teach about 3 different ways to tune those pesky bass strings, and maybe there's a little nugget in there that you haven't tried, and the bass strings are particularly tricky to tune. And hope you enjoy it. So let's. Hi, fans of Stalking the Wild Autoharp. I'm Hal Weeks. This is another episode, and we're finally getting around to how to tune your Autoharp. That's right. Today I'm going to show you my favorite tuning hacks, and I'm going to bust some myths about tuning, things you do and do not need to do. And a lot of people have some very interesting ideas about the kinds of things that you have to do with tuning, and it's not really all that necessary. So this might be a little controversial. Stick around because I'm going to show you how it all works. First of all, let's talk about equipment to tune your Autoharp. Tuning wrenches. First of all, you got to have a wrench to tune your tuners. You don't want to use pliers to tune your Autoharp. You got to have a wrench to tune your Autoharp. That's the tool that you use to tune your Autoharp. There's different kinds of wrenches. These are the 2 kinds that I like to use. This is a T-styled, and it has a this is a T-style, and it has a hole that looks like a star on it, which means that when you put it on a peg, you can have it like this, you can have it like this, like this, like this, like this. In other words, there's 8 positions instead of just this and this. And that can make a difference, and it fits on pretty nicely. This one also has a star. This is a long-handled tuning wrench. It's great for doing micro adjustments with. And the third kind, I've got one around here somewhere, but I don't know where it is. It's just like this, only it's a little bitty one. Okay, so those work perfectly well too. Let me also show you electronic tuners. I'm going to show you 2 different kinds of electronic tuners. One is this kind of tuner. This happens to be a Korg chromatic tuner. These sell for about $20, and they're great. I don't know if you can see that display, but you'll also see that there's 3 lights. One tells you when you're too high, one tells you when you're too low, and one tells you when you're spot on, and it turns green, and that's when you're in tune. These, just a warning, do not automatically turn off. You can come back 4 hours later and it's still on. So turn it off when you're done. That being said, this tuner has had the same battery in it for 11 years, and it's still going. What's up with that? I don't know, but they're great, they're accurate, they work well. They have a plug. This is called a, well, it's an input plug, so if you're using an electric guitar, you can plug it in there. But the other great thing is you can get what's called a tuning clip. Now, I don't have one, so I can't show it to you, but it plugs in here. It's got a wire and a clip on the other end, and you can clip it onto your Autoharp, and it hears like a microscope. It hears really well with the tuning clip, and if you're having trouble being heard, you can tune in a noisy room. If there's a bunch of other instruments around you, you put on your tuning clip, and it's like you're in a private recording studio, and it can hear your Autoharp a lot better. So consider getting a tuning clip. The other kind of tuner that I want to show you is the snark style. Now there's other brands that these clip onto your Autoharp, and they hear through their clip, just like the tuning clip on the other kind. So when you clip this onto your Autoharp, and I'll show you the different places you can clip it on, it hears close up, just like putting your ear against the Autoharp would hear really well. These turn on here, and there's a display that you'll be able to see that in a minute. But when it hears your harp, it lights up, and it lights up green when you're on the note. And it tips too far this way or too far that way, depending if you're too low or too high, so that you know where you stand. So I'm going to show you all of that. All right, so now I want to move my camera down so that you can see my harp that's right here, and we'll work on learning how to tune. When I use this, I just set it right here. And as a matter of fact, today I'm going to set it down here, and then I'm going to use this one. Now, you don't have to use two tuners. I'm using two tuners so that you have a reference too. Got a clip, and you can clip it on to any kind of protuberance on your harp, and it does the same thing as the tuning clip. It listens through the clip, and it picks up the vibrations, and it's a lot easier to tune in a loud room. These are great. All right, so I'm going to set up this snark tuner over here so that you can see it light up. See if I can get it to stay there. And you will see that it's hearing my notes. Now, a good electronic tuner, first of all, get a chromatic tuner. Korg, chromatic tuner. Snark, chromatic tuner. Some tuners only hear guitar notes. You have to be able to hear all 12 notes. So get a chromatic tuner. When you pluck the string, the first thing it does is tell you what note it's playing. This is a G. It's also out of tune, because if it was in tune, this would roll up to the very top and light up green. And that's the part I'm going to show you next. So when it comes time to actually tune your harp, one thing you need to know is you don't have to go through and tune in octaves. There's a lot of people who will tell you, well, you tune the F string and then the F string and then the F string and then the F string, and then tune the G string and the G string and the G string and the G string. You can tune that way if you want, but I have always tuned sequentially through. I usually start at the top and come to the bottom. Some people start at the bottom and go to the top. It does not make any difference. So I have found out, I'm going to turn on this tuner, that this tuner and that tuner agree, as they should, because if somebody tunes with this tuner and you tune with that tuner, your harps should be in tune with each other. Your instrument should be in tune. This one, it's a little bit hard to see the meter, I think, on the screen, but I'll try to show it to you as I get closer. So the way I do this, I'm going to use this wrench today. The way I do this is I just put it on the top string, pluck the string. You want to tune to the fresh note, meaning the first 3 or 4 seconds of the vibration, and then damp it, and then pluck it again if you need to. And this is telling me I'm quite sharp. It's been raining a lot recently, so that's probably why. So I'm going to come down. Now I'm flat. Now I'm a little bit above. See how it's lighting up green? That's telling me that it's good. Now, the way I like to do this, it takes a while to get the touch on the tuning wrench that you need. So be patient while you learn it. But what I like to do is I like to set it just a little hair too high and then push on the string. And that makes it drop down into place. Hopefully that's a good tip for you. Now you see the little yellow sliver on that? That's telling me it's just a hair high. And my tuner over here is saying the same thing. So if I drive on the string a little bit, just stretch, 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 it sits right in tune. So that's the way I do it. And you see every string is just a little high on this harp. Remember how good it sounded in tune? So if I had pulled this harp out and I wanted to play it, I would have just played it because it sounded in tune, but it's all a little sharp of A440 tuning standard. So here I go through my strings. You'll notice that I damp not only the string that I'm tuning, but then I'll go and damp down here. That's because this string, through the laws of physics, I don't know if you can hear my harp still singing, but these strings are echoing back. They're ringing back sympathetically. And the tuner will hear that, even if the microphone doesn't pick it up. But you want to be right on that green light for every string. It takes a while to get the touch. Now, if you let an Autoharp sit around in the closet or under the bed for a year, it'll go so far out of tune that when you pluck the C string, it tells you it's a B or a B flat. And when you've got a harp that's that much out of tune, you have to make sure that you're tuning up to the right note. So let's say you pluck it. Well, let me set this way out here. This is supposed to be an F sharp. But let's say it's all the way down here. Its reading is an E. You got to make sure that it is an F sharp. You look at how your harp is labeled. Hopefully it's labeled correctly. If not, you need to know what strings go, what note you're supposed to tune to. Don't tune this to make it an in tune E, because it won't be the right note. You got to go up, and you're going to see your tuner go through the E, through the F, all the way up to the F sharp. See, there's the F. Now, let me show you something here. This is an F, and it's sharp, which means it's too high for an F, but it's not too high for an F sharp, which is still further higher up. See, now it's reading F sharp. And see, there's a flat F sharp. It's too low. There we go. That's an F sharp, and it's spot on tune. My next note is an F, and it's sharp, just like all of the others. So, lather, rinse, repeat. Lather, rinse, repeat. You just go through every note this same way. Be patient with yourself, especially if you have an Autoharp that hasn't been tuned in a long time. It's going to take you a good while to tune an Autoharp that hasn't been tuned in a long time. If you have a harp that's relatively in tune, with itself. Once you have your moves down, also, you'll notice that I take my hand off. Because if I'm still torquing on it a little bit, it might read in tune. And then as soon as I take my hand off, it doesn't. So now, the moment you've all been waiting for, how to tune the bass strings. Here's the problem, folks. The reason that bass strings, tuners don't like bass strings. Some tuners are better than others, but very often tuners get confused about your bass strings. Chromatic tuners don't like bass strings. So if on a given day your bass strings are not registering in your chromatic tuner, don't be surprised. It's not your tuner. There's a thing about the bass strings on an Autoharp. The bass notes on an Autoharp really should be longer in order to have a good, pure overtone structure, which has to do with physics, but it also has to do with how the tuners listen to the notes. And because the strings are shorter and they have to be wound fatter to get that low note, which is called the fundamental, to come out, it puts the higher harmonics out of tune with the lower harmonics. Now, what are the harmonics? The harmonics are mathematical subdivisions of the length of the string. This is 19.5 inches from here to here, I believe, on an Oscar Schmidt. And the middle is right around here somewhere. So you see what's happening is when you pluck the string, you can't see it, but it's going, it goes up and down, or actually back and forth on an Autoharp. It goes back and forth, but also it's going back and forth in halves. It's rippling like this. And that point in the center where that half, it's making an S. Where that half is, that's called a node. And it's a place where if you lightly touch the string and pluck it, it rings like a bell. And it's ringing like that all the time. I don't know if you can hear it, but this note is part of this note. And it's a loud part. And the tuner hears that, and it likes it better. But the problem is, let me turn this back on for you. Now let's tune it. Notice that I'm touching really lightly at that place, and you kind of have to search for it at first. So it's called popping a harmonic. And you'll hear electric guitar players do this all the time. But you find it and then you pluck and immediately lift off. And I'm not pushing down hard, I'm just touching it lightly. And they're in the same place because this bridge is straight. If it was angled, like on that harp that I had to put on the strings for, they would all be raked across at an angle also, or they'd rake across at this angle. But because the bridge is straight, now here's another cool thing, the math. This is half. At a quarter, there's another place. So the string is vibrating in quarters. And there's also one at a third. So by finding the octave harmonic, which is in the middle of the string, and popping it, it gives you a more pure tone that you can tune your harp to. And if this one is doing what this one is doing, it's jumping around, it's going like this. It's like, where is it? Where is it? I can't find it. The problem is that the harmonics are a little bit out of tune with the fundamental. Sometimes with the bottom 4 strings, you have to go pretty close is good enough. The other thing about it is that your audience cannot hear the bass strings. So it doesn't matter that much. If you have a pickup in your harp and you're playing through the pickup, yes, that can make a difference because those strings will be nice and loud. That's got a nice harmonic. That's pretty close. It's kind of wavering around the note. Now, I told you I was going to give you 3 ways to tune the bass strings. One way is to get yourself a tuner with a clip, and hopefully it just hears your bass note. These are doing pretty good at hearing the bass note, but it's coming in a little high. So, number 1, get yourself a tuning clip. Number 2, tune using harmonics, like I just showed you. Number 3 is tune it by ear. The way I tune by ear is I know this is an F string, so I play an F chord, and I go, and I pluck that low string, and I listen to it just like it's a slide guitar, and it's sliding up to pitch. And then the next string up is a G, and so I'll take a G chord, and tune it by ear. Remember that your audience can't really hear the bass strings very well, but you can because they're right by your ear as you play. So that's another way that you can tune. So number 1, tuning clip. Number 2, harmonics. Number 3, tune by ear. And see if one of those doesn't suit you better. Now I've got a C string. See, now that's way sharp. When you have an Autoharp that you keep in tune, it's going to train your ear so that you can hear what a beautiful Autoharp tone sounds like, and when it's in tune and when it's out of tune. And you'll become really sensitive to that, so that if you pick up a harp and you hear one string that's a little bit out in the chord, it just sounds a little bit overripe, you'll be able to know it's that string, and you'll be able to hit on it, and you'll be able to be back in tune like that. And it also makes your harp easier to keep in tune all the time and kind of stay where you put it, especially luthier harps. Oscar Schmidt's chroma harps, they kind of drift a little bit with the humidity. Maybe it's, I don't know, the inside isn't finished, so the humidity gets into it a little bit more, or it's a little bit of a thinner harp, so it's more susceptible to changes. Just be aware of that. Keeping it in tune will help you keep it in tune and make it faster to tune. The other thing is, how often do I tune? Well, what I tell people is when you're starting, when you're beginning, go ahead and tune all the time. tune every time you take it out because it's part of your practice session and you're working on getting your moves down. And once your moves are down, you'll be able to tune the whole harp in about 5 minutes. It won't be that much of a hassle. I know that the first time you tune it, it seems like it takes 5 hours. But if you hang in there, you're going to get your moves down, and it's going to go faster and faster. And pretty soon, you won't think twice about tuning 36, 37 strings. So at the beginning, go ahead and tune all the time, even if it sounds in tune to your ear. But after a while, after you get to the place where you can go through the whole harp and in about 5 minutes, you're getting the whole thing down, then go ahead and slack off. Because if you relax about it, if you just go, hey, if I pick it up and it sounds good to me, I'm just going to play it. Great. That's fantastic. Because you've got your moves down, you know the muscle memory, you know how to tune it when you need to. The only time that that's not okay is if you're playing with somebody else, or if you have perfect pitch and it bothers your ear, of course you're going to want to tune it. But okay, so I think I went through all the strings. So there you have it. That's how I tune an Autoharp. Hope you liked this and hope it was helpful and maybe you got a few extra little tuning tips. I'm Hal Weeks. If you like this video, go ahead and subscribe, please. A lot of people watch and they don't subscribe. When you subscribe, you get notified. Hit that little bell that's next to the subscribe button. You'll get notified every time I upload a new video. It helps me to get more viewers and discovered by more people, which helps me get more students. I teach Autoharp online through Skype privately. You can work with me individually on your Autoharp playing. The information is on my website as to the prices and everything. Also on my website, you will find a list to everything Stalking the Wild Autoharp, all classified, so it can help you find stuff because there's over 100 episodes now. And lastly, remember that I have a Patreon where you can go and you can kick in a few bucks on a monthly basis, and it helps keep me keep going. And I always appreciate that. So thanks for watching. I'm Hal Weeks. We'll see you later.